Thank you for joining us online at Crossroads Community Church. We hope you enjoy this sermon from our most recent service, but we'd love for you to join us in person at Crossroads. We invite you to attend one of our services next weekend. We meet on Saturday nights at 6:30 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9:30 and 11 a.m. If you would like to join our mission to connect people with God, visit us at www.crossroads.cc, where you can make a one-time donation or set up a recurring donation to support what God is doing at Crossroads. Enjoy the service.
Down, 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 be down, 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 be down, 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 be down. Wah, 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 wah.
We're going to jump right in this morning. It was about 3 weeks ago that I had probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. I had been asked to officiate a wedding by just the sweetest couple in all the world here from Crossroads. And their wedding was at 3:30 on a Saturday 3 weeks ago at 3:30 in York County. And so they actually had to rearrange their schedule so that I could be available here and all that stuff. So they really worked with me to set up their wedding at a time that would work for all of us. So they have their wedding here at 3:30, not at our church, but at another church in York County. And so I got up that morning of the day of the wedding, and I said to myself, you know what? My daughter was playing a softball tournament in Richmond, and I thought, I'm going to drive to Richmond this morning, and I'm going to catch a game. And she had 3 games that day. I said, I can get the early game, and the next 2 games will be, I'll miss because of the wedding and the reception, but I can catch the first game. And so I thought, this is a good idea. I can leave Richmond by 12:30, and if I leave Richmond at 12:30, that gives me plenty of time to get to York County to officiate this wedding at 3:30. I mean, 3 hours from Richmond seems to be doable, right? Okay, so I started kind of thinking about it, and I asked Heather, my wife, I said, Heather, what do you think about me, going to Richmond this morning and watching a game, and then, driving back? 3 hours should be enough. And, she did that thing that wives do sometimes where they kind of question your ability to make a wise decision, and she says, I think that's kind of the way that they set the alarm, right? Are you sure? I said, yeah, I think I'm okay. I called my dad, and I asked my dad, I said, Dad, here's what I was thinking about doing today. I'm going to drive to Richmond, give me 3 hours to get back, and I'll come back and do the wedding. And my dad said just as plainly as he could, don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. It's too important to this couple for you to take any chances that you might be running late or whatever the case might be. And I said, I'm fine, I'm good. So I packed my suit, and I jumped in the car with my daughter, and we started heading down the road. And I looked down, and I had about a quarter of a tank of gas. And my daughter says to me, Dad, don't you think you probably should stop and get some gas on the way? Because you're going to be in a hurry coming back from Richmond. I said, I'm fine. I'll get gas in Richmond before I hit the road and come back. 3 hours. I've got plenty of time. So we get there, watch the game. Great game. Everything went well. 12:30. I think I might have left more like 12:45, but I get in the car to come home, and I put in the GPS, the address back to the church in York County. And the time came up that tells you what time you're going to arrive, and it said time of arrival was 3:46. Wedding starts at, do you remember what I said? 3:30. 3:30. So I'm thinking, this can't be right. It's like 50-some miles, and the GPS is broke or something. I don't know. So I hit the road not knowing, I guess I realized, but I just didn't want to believe it, that the GPS actually, would account for the traffic that I might hit on the way home. And so I hit the road. I'm heading on back. There's no time for gas now because I'm not going to make it. So I'm hit the road. I'm going, and as I'm going down the road, I guess, a few miles in, hit traffic. And it was just like so slow. And I'm starting to pray, God, please do something supernatural, like make this car fly. Can you pick it up above all the other cars and just fly it across? And if you'll do that, God, I promise I'll give all kinds of testimony to it and say, I can't believe God did this. Just make this car fly or whatever the case might be. But anyway, it was so slow and so slow. I finally got to to Norge. By the way, the time never changed. It kept saying 3:46. And I got to about Norge, and I got off there and said, well, I'll avoid all this traffic, and drove through Providence Forge and all that stuff, and then got back on the interstate and was just flying after that. GPS never changed, though. The time, I'm thinking, this is weird, because I'm just flying down the road now. Past an exit, which I should have gotten off on, looking back now, and go around the corner, and what happens as soon as you go around the corner? It stopped. Stopped. It was like a 6-mile backup. And I just kept praying. All I could imagine in my head was this couple, this sweet couple, standing at the front of the church, the groom consoling the bride because the stupid pastor didn't show up in time to officiate the wedding. And just all these things started going through my mind, and so it's just like so slow. I finally get to the Parkway, and I jump off there. So I'll just take the Parkway all the way to J. Clyde and then up to the church. So that took forever. But the GPS started to change once I hit the Parkway. Started to deduct time off, which was good. But it only deducted it to the point of that I was going to arrive there at 3:21. Wedding starts at 3:30. Couldn't get in touch with the groom, called, tried, nobody called me. I'm like panicking and freaking out and still praying, God, do something huge. About that time I looked down and noticed that the gas light was on. And not sure how long it had been on, because I hit the button to check the fuel economy, which tells you how many miles you have to go before you need to get gas, and it didn't say 15 miles or 10 miles or 5 miles. It was 4 asterisks going across the thing, which meant I was running on fumes with 10 miles to go before I even got off the Parkway. I just prayed again, God, you got to do something big here. I just have this pictures of this couple in my head, at this church, and all the angry guests and all that stuff. So finally got off Parkway somehow. I'll give glory to God about this. I got off Parkway, got to 7-Eleven, jumped out, swiped the card, put $1.73 of gas in the car, and hit the road again, like flying down the road. Now it's saying I'm going to arrive at the church at 3:25. And I did. I got to the church at 3:25, walked in, the groom's brother was standing in the foyer, and when he saw me, it was like he had seen Jesus himself. He's like, oh my gosh, you're here. And he just comes over and hugs me and ushers me back to where all the grooms and the groomsmen are and all that stuff. And the groom's just like, I am so glad to see you. I was like, I've been trying to call you. Oh, my phone's out in the car, whatever. No time to talk right now. I couldn't even tell the story. I go get my microphone and then come right back, and we walk on the stage just like that. That's how close I cut it. By the way, I forgot to mention that I put my suit on driving down the Parkway, which is really tough to do, trying to tuck in a shirt as you're driving down the Parkway. The bride had no idea. All she knew was when the service started, I was standing beside her man, and so she was fine with all of that. But, the sad part of it to me was that as I tell that story, there's several people in Crossroads that are brides-to-be that have asked me to officiate their wedding in the next couple months. And you may be a little nervous right now, or even imagining me driving down the Parkway in my underwear trying to rush to your wedding ceremony. I was far from reliable that day. Far from reliable. On a day that little girls dream of, and a day that dads punch people in the face that ruin the dreams of their little girls. But I made it, So don't worry if you've asked me to do your wedding, because I've actually spent a lot of time, quite a few hours, contemplating the events that surrounded that soap opera day in my life, especially since I was preparing for a sermon series called Wisdumb. As I've been reading Proverbs, there's just this clear contrast. I hope you'll see it. There's this clear contrast between the path of the wise person and the path of the foolish person. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But as I was thinking about that sermon series and the events of that day, I got thinking about all the decision points that I passed by and didn't listen to those around me who were offering me wisdom. I counted at least 5 of them, by the way. One, I shouldn't have even gone to Richmond that day. I've lived in the area long enough to know that that's a bad idea, but I did it anyway. and I suffered the consequences. Number 2, I should have considered the room of anxious guests and the bride who had been dreaming about this day, and the picture of the groom consoling the bride at the front of the church, and the potential of somebody like me, ruining their special day. I should have considered that. I should have listened to my wife when she sounded the alarm. Are you sure? I should have listened to my dad when he was just as clear as he could be and said to me, don't do it. And I should have listened to my 14-year-old daughter who said, Dad, you might want to get some gas on the way to Richmond because you're going to be in a hurry on the way home. I've said to myself over and over again, that was dumb. I'll be wiser next time. Ever said that? That was dumb. That was dumb. But I'll be wiser next time. Next time. I know you've said these things before. I've heard people say them. We should have dated more than 3 weeks before we got married. I'll be wiser next time. I should have counted to 10 before I lost my temper with my 12-year-old son. That was dumb. I'll be wiser next time. I should have applied myself more diligently to my job before I got fired. That was dumb. I'll be wiser next time. I should have cut up those 3 credit cards that came in the mail. That was dumb. I'll be wiser next time. What I know about us as people is that we all of us come in here this morning with a backpack full of regrets, and we can look back over the course of our life with perfect 20/20 vision, right? And see that at some point in our life, and many times in our life, we've chosen the path of foolishness, and we've walked that path and paid the consequences for it, only to utter the words, that was dumb, and I'll be wiser next time. Well, what I want you to know about the book of Proverbs, and if you don't get anything from this whole morning, I hope that you'll get this. The book of Proverbs that we're going to study together is God's gift to us to be wiser this time, the first time, the time before the divorce, the time before the bankruptcy, the time before we lose our job, the time before the bad decision, the time before. It's God's gift to us to say, be wiser this time and not next time. Anybody up for that? Does that sound good to anybody? I'm up for it. So let me give you just a few facts about Proverbs, and then we'll jump into it. Just a few facts about it. First, you have to know who wrote it. King Solomon, the wisest king in history, maybe the wisest person in history, wrote the book of Proverbs. It was compiled somewhere between the 6th and 10th century BC. One of the things you need to know about it is that it's not just a rigid list of rules for you to follow blindly. If that's what you're looking for, you're going to be disappointed. It's actually a picture of the design of life. How God has designed life to be and how it works best. He's the designer of life, and so as the designer of life, He knows how it should work and how it could work. So think of it more about like a divinely guided common sense book. That's really what it is. Some verses are very subtle. It's like poetry, and you read it, and as you read it and think about it, its beauty just begins to develop in you as you think through it, and then you get to a place where you're like, ooh, that's good. That's good. Other times you'll read a proverb, and it will just punch you in the face, I need that from time to time. You probably do as well. Proverbs is a favorite book of mine. There are 31 chapters. Several times a year, when we have months that have 31 days, I'll read one chapter a day for 31 days. Easy way to do your devotion. 31 chapters, 31 days. Easy way to do it. And every time I read it, God always, for whatever place I am in my life and stage of my life at that time, God always reveals to me through His Word that it's alive and active, and this is exactly what I need at this moment. He'll do the same for you as well. Let me just give you some of my favorite Proverbs just to kind of whet your appetite. Here's a few of them that I picked out. Proverbs 14:30 says, a peaceful heart leads to a healthy body. Jealousy is like cancer in the bones. Isn't that good? It's like a tweet, You can think of Proverbs like tweets. It's just these chunks of knowledge in these little sections, right? Proverbs 10:19 says, too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. I told you sometimes it just punches you in the face, right? Good stuff. Proverbs 27:15 and 16 says, a quarrelsome wife is like the dripping of a leaky roof in a rainstorm. Restraining her is like restraining the wind or grasping oil with the hand. If you think that the men are off the hook, how about this one? Many a man proclaims his own steadfast love, but a faithful man who can find? The righteous who walks in his integrity, blessed are his children after him. You think, well, I could just do whatever I want to do, and as long as nobody knows or it's not hurting anybody. Oh yeah, it hurts somebody. You walk in your integrity, and your children will be blessed after you. Proverbs 13:24, those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Wow. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Tweet that sometime. Okay, Proverbs 19:1, better to be poor and honest than to be dishonest and a fool. Good stuff. I love this one as well, Proverbs 16:7, when people's lives please the Lord, even their enemies are at peace with them. One of the translations say, even their enemies will shake their hands. Just some really great nuggets of God's wisdom to us. Now, let's jump into Proverbs chapter 1. This is just the introduction, and then we'll spend the rest of our time in chapter 3. But just as introduction, let me read to you the first 7 verses of Proverbs chapter 1. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. That's telling you who the author is. He sets the foundation here for gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction in prudent behavior, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to the simple, or what that really means is, if you're not sure what those words mean, it's to give caution to the gullible, to the fool, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance, for understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. And here's just an important word that sets the foundation. A verse that says this, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Just a sharp contrast that you'll see running all throughout Proverbs of this wise path and this foolish path. The wise person fears the Lord and obeys and has reverence for the Lord. The foolish person ignores the instruction of God. You've probably heard the story about the foolish man who builds his house on sand, and the wise man who builds his house on a rock, the foundation, the fear of the Lord. You might be saying this morning, that seems so simple, or how can you be so naive to believe in a God you can't see? That's so simple-minded. It's not wise to believe in a God that you can't see. Well, you're absolutely wrong, because the wisest thing that you can do is fear the Lord. And the fool is the one who despises the wisdom of God. Proverbs 3, you see the two main ideas of the book of Proverbs. Let me read those to you as well. It says, blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better return than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you can desire can compare with her. I asked my wife a couple weeks ago, why do you think that anytime it talks about wisdom, it says she and her? And she just said, well, it's probably because women are more wise than men. I said, oh, okay, maybe so. It says, long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She's a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold fast will be blessed. Let me give you just the two main ideas of the book of Proverbs, and you can write these down in your bulletin. I'm just giving them to you right up front. Number one, wisdom must be pursued. Wisdom must be pursued. You're not going to find it in the drinking water. It's not floating around in the air where you can just sniff it and get all this wisdom. You have to track it down and go after it and pursue it and hunt it. Pursue it. Pursue it. Number two, God's wisdom has a paycheck. God's wisdom applied daily is going to pay off big time in your life. There's always a benefit. There's a paycheck. Your life will be greatly blessed. We'll come back to that in just a minute. Let's go to wisdom must be pursued. Let me just ask you this question. Wisdom must be pursued. So are you pursuing wisdom? Are you pursuing wisdom? Are you really pursuing wisdom? Verse 13 talks about searching for it and finding it. Verse 18 talks about taking hold of it. Over a dozen times in Proverbs, it talks about pursuing it. It's saying if you're passive about it, it's not going to get in you. You're not going to have the wisdom. You got to go after it and go after it. I'm thinking about two friends of mine who I'm still in contact with and love dearly. One of them, he sends me emails all the time. Actually, they both do. Emails and messages or text messages. One of them is constantly searching for YouTube videos and looking for the stupidest or funniest or craziest YouTube videos and then sends them to me. I mean, this happens on an alarming amount of times. I mean, it's just constant. The other friend of mine, is constantly reading books and articles, including the Bible, and seeking out wisdom and then finding these tidbits of wisdom and sending them to me as well. Now let me ask you, of those two guys, 10 years down the road from now, if you were to place a bet, which one would you place your bet on that their life's going to be in better shape 10 years from now? The one who's pursuing wisdom, right? Pursuing wisdom. What Proverbs exposes to us is that there's this nasty little secret about us as human beings. We carry within us a fascination for foolishness and for folly. We do. We just do. That's exposed. All of us have this fascination for folly. Why else or how else could you explain smart people spending well-earned dollars on a movie called Dumb and Dumber? I mean, really. $250 million worldwide. A second movie a sequel called Dumb and Dumber just recently came out. So far it's only, it had like $39 million. So maybe we've wised up a bit. Why would people leave work early on a regular basis, show up late all the time, play enormous, incredible amounts of hours of video games, watch cage fighting, listen to talk radio, root for the Boston Red Sox? I mean, why would people do these kinds of things? There's this fascination for folly. It's all folly. And there's this warning that we have in Proverbs that is like, don't let folly get its grips on you. Don't let folly get its hooks in you. In fact, even avoid people who are folly-prone people. So such is peril. Pursue wisdom. Pursue wisdom. Set your sights on it. Go after it. Hang out with wise people. Pursue it, it says over and over again in Proverbs. Pursue it, pursue it, pursue it. And when you do, wisdom has a paycheck. Wisdom has a paycheck. God's wisdom applied daily to your life will pay off big time. Big time. See if you can pick them out. We'll just go through them 1 to 6 real quick. See if you can pick them out as I read Proverbs chapter 3. You can write them down. Blessed are those who find wisdom. You hear the first one? Blessed. Blessing. God's favor on your life. Blessing are those who find wisdom. Those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better return than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you can desire can compare with her. Number 2, long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are number 3, riches. And number 4, honor. You see the paycheck here? Her ways are pleasant ways, pleasantness. Number 5, pleasantness. Her ways are pleasant ways. And all her paths are, number 6, peace. You see the paycheck of applying God's wisdom to your life daily? If I were to pass a microphone around the room this morning and say to you, describe a time in your life when you were on the path of foolishness. Go ahead and describe it. What are the words that describe that time in your life? Are you going to say words like pleasantness and peace? On the contrast, if I passed the microphone around the room and said, hey, describe a time in your life when you were fully aligned with God's Spirit and His Word and you were on the path of wisdom, describe those words. You know what you're going to say? Pleasantness and peace and blessing. Those are the words you're going to say. Verse 18, it says, wisdom is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. There's this renewing going on day after day after day. She's a tree of life. Those who hold her fast will be blessed. Again, this blessed of God's favor on your life. Now, what you need to understand about all of this is Solomon's not saying, and make sure that I'm really clear, Solomon is not saying that wisdom seekers will have trouble-free lives. He never makes that promise to us. Or that the blessings will come overnight. But what he's saying to us, and the truth is that God's wisdom applied over time in your life are going to pay off with higher levels of peace, lower levels of stress, a deeper awareness of God's presence, security, direction, rest, all of that protected by God's wisdom. There's a paycheck. Pursue wisdom. And when you do, it pays off in your life. Well, before I wrap this thing up, let me answer just a couple questions that might be floating around the room about this series. Maybe it's a question like, why Proverbs, or why a series called Wisdom at this point in the life of Crossroads? Both of those are great questions. Maybe you weren't thinking of them, but I want to answer them anyway. Because one of the exciting and challenging exercises that I'm walking through personally and with your elders, and oh, by the way, you should be so proud of your elders here at Crossroads. And I'm walking through this exercise with them. What will Crossroads look like 5 years from now? And I'm asking myself over and over again, is there anything that stands in the way of Crossroads having a fantastic future for this church and for the people who call it home? And as I'm asking that question to God over and over again, He just whispers to me, read Proverbs. Read Proverbs. And when God whispers something in your ear, you better obey it. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been reading Proverbs personally. I've been listening to sermons about Proverbs. I've been reading articles about Proverbs. I've been talking to friends and other pastors about the book of Proverbs. And that's how these two ideas just began to kind of settle in my heart. Pursue wisdom. And when you pursue wisdom, there'll be a paycheck. Over time, if you pursue wisdom and you apply that godly wisdom to your life, you're going to experience God's paycheck. And then I got thinking about the hundreds of times, the emails that you send me, and the hallway conversations, and the conversations at the doors, and through Facebook, and all the times that people say, can I talk to you for a minute, or whatever the case might be. And they begin to describe to me this path that they're on, as we talk about these two paths, and they're describing to me this path of foolishness. I've walked it, so I'm not putting myself at a higher level than anybody. I've walked the path of foolishness dozens, hundreds of times. And as they start to tell me the story of the walking on the path of foolishness, I'm standing there thinking, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Here comes the consequences. I tell you, as a pastor, sometimes I just feel like a punching bag. It's like as I hear the consequences and the pain that people go through as they continue to go on the path of foolishness, and a lot of times stubbornly. There's been many times, countless times where people have come to me and asked for godly wisdom. And I honestly, I pray and I ask God to help me point people to the path of wisdom and not the path of foolishness. And as I point people to the path of wisdom, a lot of times I see people even walk away from that and say, in a stubborn way, but I like this path better. And as they walk that path, they experience the consequences and the pain and the hurt that comes behind that. And I just want to scream out, you're missing the pleasantness and peace of God because you won't go on the path of wisdom. It just falls on deaf ears. And so over and over and over again, over the course of the past couple months, God's been saying to me, it's time to re-enroll in the school of wisdom. It's time to re-enroll and for us to get on the path of wisdom. It's going to take more than a week, and so I wanted to do a series on wisdom. It's going to take more than a month, so it's a little longer than our usual series. But I just believe that it's time to learn wisdom's ways and to apply it and to stop paying the piper all the time. And experience the blessing and favor of God in your life because you've chosen to walk the path of wisdom. And I keep thinking, what if 350 of us, at Crossroads, were to turn our back on folly and start pursuing wisdom together? What would it look like? Those are the kinds of things that I dream about. And so I'm just asking you, that's all I can do. As the worship team comes, all I can do is just ask you, will you pursue wisdom? Will you pursue wisdom? And let me just give you several ways that I'd like to see us do this together over the course of the next 6 weeks. First, will you make it a priority? Will you arrange and rearrange your life to make sure that you can be here over the course of the next 6 weeks as we talk about this idea of wisdom and God's wisdom? Will you make it a priority in your life? Yeah. If you've got other plans, vacation stuff that you can't change, fine, that's great. But still, will you make it a priority? And when you get home or while you're away, will you listen to the message that you missed over the course of that time away? Will you pursue wisdom? I'm committed to it. I'm going to be preaching 5 of the 6 weekends as we go through this series together. By the time we get to the end of it, you're all going to be tired of me. But we're in for an adventure, together. And I want us to pursue God's wisdom together. Between weekends, will you make it a priority to pursue wisdom? Will you read the book of Proverbs? July has 31 days. Starting July 1, will you read 1 chapter a day for 31 days in July? Maybe you want to start now. That's great. You've got 9 or 10 days before July 1st anyway. You can read the whole book and then start again. It's only 31 chapters. It's not going to take long. Pursue wisdom with me. If you'll do that, if you'll read the book of Proverbs with us, with me, will you just take out on that connection card and just write on it, I'll read Proverbs. I'll read Proverbs. I just want to know who's reading along with me. Will you put yourself around people who are pursuing wisdom? Probably one of the most important things that some of you can do in the room is to cut ties with foolish people in your life. And the relationships that you have with people that are just all about folly, and get around some people who are seeking out wisdom. One of the ways for you to do that here at Crossroads is to get involved in groups and to be around people who are pursuing wisdom with you, who will look across the table with you and challenge you and be there with you as you pursue wisdom with them. And so if you're not in a group, or maybe you already are, if you're not in a group, can we help you find a group? Can you just put groups on your card to let us know you're interested in groups, and let us help you find the right one? Pursue wisdom together with other people. Finances gosh, if there was ever a place in our life where we've walked the foolish path, it's finances, isn't it? Many of you have been through Financial Peace University, and thank you to the Waskis for doing that several times here at Crossroads. Just the wisdom of God when it comes to finances. And many of you have been through that, but then stubbornly, you haven't applied that. You know the way of wisdom, but yet you continue to walk on the path of foolishness when it comes to your finances. Can we help you with that? If you haven't ever taken that class or you've never read the book, can we help you with it? If you just put on there finances, we can help you get a book. Maybe we can offer a class. We'll try to figure something out. But we want to help you with your finances. No more folly when it comes to our finances. It's the path of foolishness. And some of you, probably most importantly, out of all of this, the foundation is a relationship with Jesus Christ. And some of you you've been kicking the tires for far too long, and it's time to jump in the car and take the ride. And you need to begin a relationship with Christ. That's the foundation. It's the fear of the Lord is the foundation. Pursue wisdom with us. And so if you want to begin a relationship with Christ, just mark that on your card as well. It would be our honor to spend time with you and walk you through that and help you. Don't do what I did 3 Saturdays ago at that wedding when everybody was saying to me, here's the wise path. And I kept saying, nah, I got it. And I walked the path of foolishness, and it caused embarrassment and pain and difficulty. And then I run into this verse in Proverbs 13:13. It says, he who scorns instruction will pay for it. I think God put that in there just for me that day when I read that verse. There's a better way. Let's pursue wisdom. Are you up for it? You up for it? All right, let's pray. God, thank you for your great love for us. Thank you that we, as a church body and individuals, will be pursuing wisdom together. God, make it a priority for us to be here over the next 6 weeks, to expose areas in our life, God, where we have folly and foolishness and have walked the path of foolishness stubbornly. We don't want to pay the piper anymore. We want your blessing, your favor, your pleasantness, your peace on our lives, and we want to apply your wisdom every day. So over time, we see the paycheck of doing that. God, we want to pursue wisdom together. And so, God, we ask you, help us to be strong in these commitments that we've made today. God, we pray for those that have kicked the tire and need to stop test driving a relationship with you and actually dive into it. We pray for them. We ask you to give them the courage to do that this day. And we love you. We give you this time. In Jesus' name, amen.